We're live.
Okay.
We're live. All right, you can go ahead and start.
Okay. Welcome everyone to this next edition with Enstar Technologies. Today we are talking about the non-technical skills you need to have to be a successful database administrator. And as always, we have Dr. Namdi with us here today to be answering the questions that we have. So let's get to it. The non-technical skills that you need to have to be a successful database administrator. So, Dr. Nandi, can you start us off and tell us what are some of the non-technical skills that are required to be a database administrator?
So before I even go there, right, I wanted to highlight there are people pay attention to because it's a technical role. That's obviously the priority. So there's a lot of attention given to um the technical know-how, right? People want to learn in fact, when people have conversations with us, right, their priority is typically um, questions they typically have are around their technical abilities or inabilities or inadequacies. Because that's the focus. Like, am I going to code? Am I going to write script? Do you need to know maths? Do I need to be good with computers? That's always the focus when people are doing these investigations about whether they need to, when they're exploring career changes, looking to get into database administration or just tech as a whole. Um, but the non-technical skills are equally as important. Those soft skills are, they're so important as well. Think about when you go do your interviews, right? It's I've seen a lot of people who are technically proficient. They know the stuff, they are good at it, but they can't convey their thoughts clearly. They're not able to clearly, communicate their value. And so they don't get the opportunities. They're not able to, they begin to see themselves as, okay, maybe this is not for me. But the only problem is they just did not communicate their value properly. So they are not in the job not because of their technical abilities, right? There are people who on the job are not able to keep a job because they don't know how to work in a team, because they don't know how to deal with people. So those things are so important, right? People are not able to send emails or maintain professionalism, and that's impacting their ability to grow on the job or keep a job. So beyond all of the technical skills that we talk about are important. If you don't have the technical skills, you have zero chance, right? But to take it to the next step, to go on and start a career, be successful in your career, then there needs to be that emphasis on the soft skills as well, the non-computer, non-coding, non-technical stuff, right? So there is a bunch of skills. We can maybe take them one at a time, and then if you want to further during 21. But I'll start with communication, right? By far the most important of all of them, because it's your ability to convey what's in your mind clearly, concisely, and make it make sense to somebody else who might not have the same or might not be coming from the same place where you're coming from. And so it's a very relevant, non-technical skill. So communication comes to, I'll divide them into both the oral communication, your ability to speak, right? And take complex technical concepts and simplify it to people who are non-technical, and it should make sense to them, right? I always tell people my parameter for whether you understand the concept is if you can explain it to a 5-year-old and it makes sense to them. Maybe I'll up it to maybe 8 years old because 5 years old have and let's move on to eight. Let's say it makes be able to you have to be able to convey your thoughts clearly, right? A lot of tech struggle with that. That's why people people think of the first image when they think of a technical person is a geeky person wearing glasses, no friends. For that as well.
Just type in.
It's that like, hey, this person is a geek. They're no fun. They can't communicate. Nobody wants to talk to them. They can't talk to the girls, right? So communication is um, being in that vocal or oral communication, super important, right? You might get the technical knowledge, but your interviews are comprised of you being able to convince another professional that you can come in and do the job, right? So that it starts from there. It's you talking to recruiters and convincing them of your value because they don't understand the technical stuff. And so you need to be able to tell recruiters, this is my value, this is what I'm bringing to the table. You need to be able to negotiate your salary, you need to be able to negotiate your benefits. Those are communication techniques, right? You need to be able to have those conversations. Then I'll come to the next tier of communication. I'll put that in the written communication. So those non-verbal, I guess the being able to send emails, send the right emails, and proper emails, prompt emails, those email etiquettes, right? You can't say all that's in your head. That, right? Responding promptly to communication. Some people like they're not used to just getting on that email and sending and replying. So the concepts like service level agreements that we have to handle, right? You have a limited amount of time to respond to issues when they come up. If you're not prompt in communication, you are going to cost your company money, right? Because you're going to be breaking SLAs that they have with clients. Who knows what the consequences, whether it's audits that lead to fines or whatever. So proper email communication, being able to communicate clearly within teams. Sometimes again, being able to not say what you feel, but say what needs to be said in an right. Maybe having your with somebody and it's back and forth in an email and a group chat, right? Somebody reply all is not a someone say reply all, right? Reply all has got people fired, a lot of people, right? So it's super important. Those two communication tiers, there's communication is a big conversation, right? That's just being able to one fluently communicate your thoughts, your take technical concepts, break it down to non-technical people. Or imagine we do like a lot of, one of the things we talk about at Esther, like our meetings, right? One of the core parts of being a DBA is those meetings, day-to-day tasks is meetings. During those meetings, you might have meetings where you have people from the business side who have questions, people who are directly talking to your customers, your end users, and they bring questions and they might need to provide answers. You need to make it make sense to them so that they can take that information and go talk to the end user and say, hey, this is why you're experiencing what you're experiencing, right? It's production support. And so part of our role is that support aspect. And so that clarity in communication makes a difference. A lot of people that go up and go become successful, get into leadership, this is their secret weapon is they know how to they are strong in their communication, they are strong in bringing people together, making conversations, clear. Email communication is prompt, navigating those, whether it's even using different platforms and tools for communication and using those effectively. So that would be my number one, and I'll say most important um, non-technical skill. I
Most
don't know if you want
important.
to add a little bit more, or if you had any.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to add, so in terms of the database administrator, like different teams we communicate with the database administrator, are there different ways to communicate with different teams? Like, is there a different type of way you'd want to word something for a different team than for one that is not like non-technical?
No, the communication should be professional at all times, regardless of who you're speaking to, right? It's a workplace. So when you're doing any form of communication, right, we people get carried away sometimes because some companies have there's different culture for different organizations. So in some places they are loose with the language. Let me use that word. They are free with use any words. You can cause during meetings. Managers are cursing, VPs are cursing, so it's okay. In some places, it's not. The objective, the importance is are you able to convey your thoughts, right? Culture or no culture, can you convey what you are thinking clearly? It's going to be different on a who you're talking to, but for sure, right? When you're communicating with peers, the how you say or send messages might be different. The salutations might be different versus when you're communicating upwards. When you're sending messages down, again, it has to be that respectful tone, all of that. But in the end, it's still about clearly communicating your thoughts and remaining professional. I will always opt for the professional methods of communication, even when you're giving updates or on a call, on a problem call where there's maybe like we're dealing with an issue, all of the technical professionals are, so there's what we call a bridge. It's a bridge is just a conference call for we open up a bridge when there's an issue or something and they need people urgently. So they get somebody from the application support and development team and DBAs. One person is, from each of these places are on this call, and then we're trying to, triage an issue and figure out what the root cause is and all of that. So we're bantering back and forth, even on those calls, right? It's important to maintain professional communications. There might be language that is maybe not appropriate flying around, right? But again, you want to, depending on the company where you are and how far, how deep you've come. If you're just getting in there, you might want to wait until you've built some
Rapport. Yeah.
letting it fly. Because again, you better be able to defend and back up what you're doing. Your work better be able to speak. If not, those things become a thing that could be, used as a case against you. So, communication is huge. It's huge, regardless of who you're, communicating with and all. I'll say this, regardless of who it is, keep it professional. Um, Yeah, professional communication, prompt, respectful, clear, concise communication. People should read your email and it make sense. Or you're giving an update and if they understand what you're saying. Not just long-winded. We don't necessarily know what you're talking about. And we're waiting for you to arrive at the destination. You know how like where exactly you go with this story. You might eventually get to the end, but you lost us. We got to communication, those help you be successful on the job.
Okay. And in terms of communication, say platforms, which one are more frequent? Oral communication or like email or text communication?
I mean, it's you do all of them every day, every time. So there's no you're emailing, you're sending emails, you're responding to emails every day, every time. You are talking to managers, talking to peers, you're walking to somebody's cubicle and saying hello to them, and so you're doing both. Um, the job is communication, really. So there really isn't measuring, if you're working from home, you're communicating on Slack, you're doing instant messaging, you're sending messages through different communication channels, you're back and forth with your peers, you're collaborating via Slack, via all of these platforms. So it's the just it depends on your work environment. Somebody who's working from home, you might be jumping on Zoom calls often. You might be slacking the whole time. Slacking, using Slack is what I mean. Slacking. Slack. Communication, no, okay, but it has to be clear. So it just depends. There's really no metrics on which one is more. Just be grounded in your communication. That is the most important thing. Um, yeah, so we can flow communication, and that will be the whole conversation today because of how it's the other one I want to really add, and all of this kind of like fall under I'll call it organizational skill, like problem solving, um, time management, and attention to detail, right? This is kind of like all are your like organization um non-technical skills. So a lot of database administrators is that database administrators, we are mostly in that support tier, right? We work on some development type of work, right? We coordinate with product owners, architects to build stuff. But once that thing is built, we are the one group that stays on to for the life cycle of that product, whether it's a software, we are one of the people that stay on and support. So a lot of our work is support. Um, what does support entail? It breaks, we find out why it broke, find out the solution to the break-in, unbreak it, and then make sure it does put things in place to ensure it doesn't happen again or it's not a frequent occurrence, right? That's support. So being able to triage and figure out what happened, right? What led to this event? Doing a proper root cause analysis and figuring out, okay, what is the best solution? Now that we figured out the problem and the root cause of it, what's the best solution? And then what preventive measures do we need to put in place? These things are products, they are non-technical skills. You know the technology, but your ability to think, in an analytical way, to see different scenarios that could have led to this. Some people have a one-way, straight line approach to everything. But you know this, right? It's never really one straight line.
Yeah.
It can lead to something, and you have to be open in your process to investigating issues, and identifying the cause of those issues, triaging issues, figuring out what happened, why it happened, and how to fix what happened, right? That's a big part of the job of a database administrator. And then that also goes on to that. If you work in a high volume environment, high transaction volume, right? For people that are watching, right? Well, you're doing a transaction will be somebody makes a bank transfer. That's a transaction. You place an order on Amazon. That's a transaction. Those things reflect on the database. So we have oversight over all of those things. So when I say high transaction environment, I'm referring to you work in an Amazon where there's somebody buying something per second from every part of the globe. You're doing hundreds of thousands of that by the minute, right? You work for a bank, a big one of these, national banks where there is hundreds of thousands of transfers going on in real time, right? If you're working in those type of places, there's too many priorities. You'd notice there's a lot of things going on. What should I attend to first? What should I jump on this issue or should I focus on this? So ability to manage your time, prioritize your tasks, is going to help you do well. Some people cannot do that. And so when everything is coming at you from different directions, they get flustered. They get, you know, how like you're looking at different things and then you freeze. So now you can't do anything. That happens if you're likely going to experience that if you don't know how to organize yourself, organize, tasks and priorities, break down these priorities into simple tasks, know what you're working on part time, and then be able to adjust quickly if you receive any instructions otherwise. Managers can call out, say, hey, focus on this or work on this, and you should be able to, separate yourself, like, you know what, I was working on this, but I'm going to move on to this one real quick, no time, will get it done. That's being able to manage your time effectively, manage their deadlines. I talked about service level agreements before, right? That's a conversation around what the contract is with, okay, now that you've promised this client that once there's an issue in 1 hour, we're going to respond to it. So you have a 1 hour deadline once that email hits your email inbox to respond to say this is the action we're taking. So being able to organize and always meet deadlines. You're working on a project and there are timelines set for the project. And so now I need to organize myself and the task involved in my portion to ensure that I'm not falling behind and this project is not falling behind because of me, right? So it's time management. It's when I get into the office, what am I doing first? What's the first thing I'm doing? What am I taking? Where's the first view? What am I working on first? When do I move from, reports, reviewing reports to checking tickets, to responding to emails. Like those things should be aligned and outlined so that you know what you're supposed to be doing once you get into the office. You can, or once if you're working from home, once you sign into work, it should be seamless. Like, okay, step one, what you're looking for, except Obviously, there'll be days where there's emergencies that break your routine. But on a normal day, your day should be predictable, right? Based on what you're working on, it should be very predictable, because you shouldn't have emergencies every day. If not, that's a sign of either a very bad environment or you need you need to up your skills. So those problem solving, time management, and attention to detail is the last one I add in that bucket of organization. Um, like I said before, a lot of what we do is break fix. It breaks, we resolve, identify issue, fix it. You have to be someone who is patient, right? Details are everything for us. Because of we deal with sensitive data. Data is the lifeblood of every business. And so we have access to sensitive information. We have access to very like mission critical type information. And we have to be very, very we have to be very frugal in how we manage this privilege, right? And so they just being attentive. If you're someone who just wants to rush up and get it done and move on to the next thing, you need to calm down to do well in this line of work. Like it's a requirement almost that um, you have to be very attention to detail driven. And I'm seeing there's 6 people watching on live. Shout out to you guys watching us live.
Oh, wow. Shout out to you guys. Yeah.
Any questions, so we can also answer those as well. So those are my the three under organization. I will classify, in that under that bucket: problem solving, time management, and attention to detail.
Okay. So those are different from communication skills, are just in terms of organization and how you run the day-to-day operations.
Yeah, so those are different. Communication is its own. That organizational skill, I put those three. There's more non-technical skills. I don't know if you had any follow-ups. If not, I'll just keep. I have more of my.
I was going to ask, like, for problem solving, are there any tips or tricks that you could give for how to think better when it comes to solving problems or structuring or going about how you solve the problems?
Just pay attention. Right, we probably perhaps I put that problem solving attention detail. If you be open-minded, right? Don't go into treat every problem like it's its own problem. It's its own individual problem. So one of the things that tends to happen for us is because I am familiar with this infrastructure or the environment where I'm working, I'm familiar with the servers. I I can get careless, right? I can get careless because I know what's likely going on, and so this is true story, right? I was working with a company and we're working on a project, and so we would go through a process of testing. I was helping them with testing. They were building and working some application, and then so I was a database engineer assigned to that project. So when they would do what they're doing, they are working in a test environment, they will have me like take a backup from and restore for them, over their test server, test database. And it was a very routine process. And so like they'll open a ticket for me, I'll ask them to open a ticket, they'll send me a ticket, I'll follow that ticket, and I'll do the steps. One day the request changed, but it was very similar. The only thing that changed was the server I was supposed to restore this to was different, right? But they're like, hey, it's urgent, take care of this for me, blah, blah, blah. And in my head, right, okay, like, you know what, send me ticket. He didn't send the ticket on time. And even if he did, I wouldn't have gone over it. Like I was like, okay, fine. Now, we've done this 1,000 times. And I went and I restored over the original one that we always did, which messed up their work. And attention to detail. Like you can't, if you're solving, you can't go about every problem is unique. Okay, so thankfully it wasn't a big deal. It was annoying. It was an annoyance for everybody, but it wasn't something that cost the company money or anything. But I could have done this and maybe if it was production, I would have been more careful but imagine there was sensitive data there or something and I restored over it. Now that I've led to data loss, now that I've been thinking about maybe looking for a new job. So you want to face, so I should treat the lesson there is each request is its own request. no matter how similar it is to the previous ones, at least pay attention. The same way when you're going into, investigating an issue, you want to look at it from don't. Yes, you can bring historical context into your investigation or, trying to figure out what's leading to what, but you need to make sure that you're not just you're not just, going about it like I know what this is, and so I'm just going to do it. No, the nuances might be different. The expectations might be different. And so you want to pay attention to those details. So that's one tip I'll give for when you're investigating issues, when you're looking into issues from, you want to be very you want to be see it as an individual case. Don't just generalize this is what's going on. Give it the due. Give each issue its due. Do your investigations properly. Do your research. And make sure you go through your motions. In fact, what we used to do then is we'll have like steps. Like if this is going on, these are the steps I'll take. And make sure you're going through your checking. Some steps might be trivial or even insignificant in quote unquote. You want to make sure you're going through those and not missing out anyone. And then be open to your process might not work, right? What has always worked might not, or there might just be a better way. If you take that approach, you will always, more than likely be fine most of the time.
Okay. And in terms of prioritization, like how do you go about think about like time management? How do you go about prioritizing the tasks or the activities that you do throughout the day?
It depends. And priorities come based on importance, right? You know what's more important than what. What deadlines are coming due. So if I have something that is due today and I have another task that is due on Friday, but the one on Friday might be for a bigger client or whatever, I'm not going to, because of the name of the client, ignore the one that is due in 3 hours, right?
Mm.
Cost is a bigger. Now this one is due. I have a couple more days to get to that one, right? So those are things you have to be paying attention to when you're prioritizing. Is what timelines, due dates, urgency, your and then communication with your leadership, right? That's really where priorities are set. What your manager, you can think something is important. Your boss can say, "Hey, can you drop everything, work on this?" And that becomes priority, right? Once the golden rule, he who has the gold rules, right? So you have to keep that in mind. So we're depending on, what company expectations always come top, right? What's at the top of the list for the organizations in priority wise? That's your priority. And then, timelines become the next one. What are the deadlines? So all the project managers, the, project leads, product people, they'll be on your case about like, hey, this is due when it's due. So your those timelines will kind of form your priority. And then if you have, let's say you have a request, you have maybe some emails coming for issues. One of them is from a production database, and another one is from a test database server. Consequence of the issue becomes another reason. Okay, I'm going to attend to production first before I go into dev. There's no consequence for dev. Production is real world, it's real life. So customers are being impacted, revenue is being impacted. And so those are some of the things that will kind of drive your prioritization protocol. Um,
Okay. I want one more question in terms of like communication and collaboration. So let's say you have like, have there been situations where you had like conflicts with different teams in terms of communication? Like, did you understand what they were saying? Like, question there, you have like technical teams and non-technical teams. So is there like a gap in terms of communication? How do you bridge the gap and how do you resolve any communication conflicts?
we're not necessarily going to be in conflict with them. They just have what they want and we will have what we want. So not those non-technical, so people from like say the business side of, or even can maybe other technical teams, right? They just have maybe different timelines for we could be in a project. This happens often where there's a project, it's on our DBA database projects. I am the primary on this project. This is one of my top projects. But the application team has like 10 other projects they're working on. And so while I'm expecting something for them to, they're not moving as fast, right? Because they have other things. This is not as high on their priority list as it is on mine. And so Be communication is us coming to an understanding, establishing a cadence of calls. Like, okay, let's talk about this. Establishing this is what's next that is due. When you're working with technical people, especially in a project type environment, okay, this one is due, so that we are, even if this is not priority for you, we both agreed this is the next deliverable for us, right? And it works the other way around too. Some things might not be as important to me, but we've agreed, we had this project call and we said, this one, I'll deliver this on Friday. So my task is to ensure that it's delivered on Friday, right? So that's, establishing some kind of cadence and expectations in terms of um, what's due when helps with, managing disagreements between technical teams. For non-technical folks, we don't necessarily have disagreements. Again, it's more about expectation, communicating, because we're not necessarily working directly with them. A lot of times, if they are coming to us, they want clarity or they are bringing issues up and they want us to finish it. And all we're doing is ensuring that, hey, we're giving them feedback promptly on, like, hey, this is where we are. That's what they are looking for most of the time. This is what we're working on. This is where we are with this. This is when it's going to come due. They want something to communicate back to their end users. And so if the timelines you're giving maybe are not realistic for what they're looking for, they'll let you know. Like, can we move these timelines up? Can we make this faster? Well, I have a lot on my plate. Let me see if I can move this off my plate, talk to my manager, right? So that's typically how that will go. And when there's those disagreements, maybe in terms of timelines or approach, that's what we do, what we call escalation. Escalation is just moving it up to the next tier of command, right? So now certain things might not be my call to make. I escalate to my manager because you're asking me to deliver this thing by 6 o'clock, but I have three other priorities that I'm working on that's making this practically impossible for me to deliver. And so I might need to escalate, or you escalate to your boss, or you escalate to my boss, depending on who is most upset about something, right? So escalations will happen, and then that will lead to, us getting somebody above us, now making that call and saying, "Hey, okay, this is what we are going to do. This is what's going to be the focus." Um, so that's typically how those type of conflicts will happen. But again, like I said, with communication, you never let it deteriorate into anything unprofessional. Um, Regardless of the provocation or what, it's in the end, it's just work. So you can't let it get out of hand.
Okay, so we talk about communication and organizational skills. What other skills, what other non-technical skills, are applicable to database?
There's still a lot, I have, but I would say just being able to collaboration, teamwork, is another one. Being able to work within a team, right? Being able to collaborate with multiple teams. Those help you. So working within a team and then collaborating with other teams, that's a very important skill because we never work in isolation. We never work in isolation. If you're working in a project, there's probably like a project coordinator, project manager, project person. There's members from other teams, depending on the scope of the project or what the project is. There's application developers, there's programmers, there's DBAs, there's, BI, ETL folks. And so you are always working with diversity of teams. If it's something that's infrastructure related, you're working with server engineers, network engineers, you're working with architects. Some might involve some tier of leadership involved. And again, we never work in isolation, especially when we're delivering projects. And so it's important to be able to harness, those relationships, make sure that we are, very consistent in how we communicate, make sure that we are able to just manage working together within a team, putting the team goals first, managing working with other teams. That's such a big part, right? Something as when I first started my first job several years back, right? Back in 2012, my first DBA job, not my first job, my first DBA job was in 2012. And there were, because, of the setting, Like I was all about them bringing my own food and all of that. But I realized that when guys go to lunch together, the team went out to eat together. And a lot of things that maybe we did not have, were not privy to. There were people who were working on projects, doing different things that I didn't know about. But during lunch, they would talk, we would sit together as a team. And so I had to stop bringing lunch so I could go to lunch with them. Yes, was I paying? Did I like spending money?
Mhm.
Not necessarily, but um, it helped me get access into some projects, get access into some like scope of work that they were doing. And then during our group team meetings and everything, and I was things were not sounding strange for me. I knew some things about what they were working on because during lunch, I learned a few things. I had some time to go investigate. And you never know when your name will be called to take on something and you're hearing about it for the first time. So being able to make adjustments so that you can be an insider. Don't be, you have to be an insider in your own team. Don't be an outsider in your own team. People are outsiders. They don't relate to anybody. They don't talk with anybody. They're not good. We just work together and that's it. And fine, you don't have to be friends with your colleagues or coworkers, but it's important to get along with them. That it's so important for the longevity of your career, your success on the job. Some days it might be things like, hey, my daughter has an emergency and I need to go to the hospital, and I'm on call. I need somebody to cover for me. If they they might not pick your call if you're not if you're not a good team player, because then you're calling the evening to go to, but you should be in a place where I can call even if it's after hours. Your colleagues should be able to pick up and say, hey, what's going on, what's up, you good, right? And
Mm.
stepping, you should be able to find somebody who's like, hey, you know what, I'll cover for you for that day. That's being a team player. But how do you do that? By doing it for somebody else, right? Somebody saying like, "Hey, I have a doctor's appointment on Friday. I need someone to cover for me for that day. I'm doing this deployment and this deployment. I need someone to take it for me." And you're saying, "Hey, you know what? I got you. I'll stay up for that." Or I'm working on this project. I will not be able to do it and do this one at the same time. Who's available? Don't worry, I'll take care of that for you. Right? Those things, you're building that trust, that relationship. So on your day, somebody will also say, "Hey, I got you." So just
Mm.
working within a team, also being able to communicate again outside of your team. When we're collaborating with network engineers and server admins and all of these other guys, being able to have that cordial relationship with them, know how to deal with them, with their own shenanigans going on that they have with, you want to be able to navigate all of that. So it's an important aspect of the work, that collaboration, teamwork within your team and collaborating with other teams is is very, very important.
Okay, we you talk a lot about a lot of teams that you mentioned, like database administrator has to be in contact with. How do the database administrator balance those kind of communication? What kind of requests are coming in? And also in the communication part of it, I know you said it's the same, like just being clear and technical in talking about what you're talking about to the teams, but in the different teams that are coming, how is there a difference in how their requests would come in, and how do you interpret those requests to working through it?
There's no difference. I mean, every company will have their own standard protocols for some of these things. So I can't just call up the server team and just ask them, hey, I need a new server. Or can you guys provision a new server for me with this, requirements? They have their policy, they have their protocol that I have to follow. Right. For some, I will open a ticket, specifications, get approval, all of that. Whatever that protocol is, I have to adhere to it. If not, my request will go nowhere. Same thing with network engineers, the developers, and then for us as well. You can't just call me up and ask me to, hey, can you come in and run this thing for me, or can you run this script for me, or can you restore this backup for me? No, you won't do that over the phone. There is a protocol, established protocol that we follow. And so that's the protocol that you follow. So there's not necessarily the how to for those requests will be different for each organization, right? Or for each business, how they run their things. Your job at this point is now managing all of that, right? Some people might need some education. Somebody might come in and still call and say, "Hey, Nam, it's urgent. Found the mountain. I need this done." It's like relax, this is the process. I'll send you some instructions. Go ahead and do this. Immediately I get that, I will do this for you, right? Giving them as that assurance, like, you know what, I understand this is urgent. Get it done for me. I promise you, once I get what I need, I'm going to prioritize this for you, right? So that's me calming down because there might be a real urgency for them where, where his own situation. And so being able to manage those type of scenarios, that's where your collaboration skills and your communication skills, all of them come to play, right? It's okay, I'm not going to match your energy right now because where you are might not be where I am. And I understand, okay, it might be urgent for you, but I also have to follow protocol because if we go south, I will be held liable, right? And so being able to say, hey, get out of here, do the right thing, you know what to do. Like I understand what you're saying. I get it. I know it's urgent. I promise you, once I get what I need, I'll take care of this for you. In fact, I'm looking into it right now. Just go ahead and get the stuff for me. Once it's in my queue, I'm going to take care of it. That changes the energy, right? Some cases are like, you know what, because of this, I can't get it, but you know what, let's escalate this. Let's get, so that I need to be pulled out of what I'm doing now to work on your stuff for you, but I can't leave what I'm doing. That's clear. Okay, now they understand, they see where you're coming from, and so it's not a hostile response. But the protocols will be different for requests, it will be different for organization to organization.
Okay, okay. All right, I believe that is all for the topic. Is there anything you'd like to add, share with the audience, people who are listening?
Well, thanks everyone who's watching live, first of all. That's pretty dope to see. There's a lot more non-technical skills, but again, we want to keep these things to a certain amount of time. One of the things I want to add is you have to be a constant learner. You have to, because our field is always evolving, technology is always changing, and so you can't just take what you know going in, and that's all the knowledge you have. You have to keep evolving and growing the knowledge. Just wanted to add that one real quick. But as we wrap up, thanks again for everyone for watching us. We've been doing this promotion since all of last week, and the team convinced me to push it for an extra. So till our 50% of our programs goes on to tomorrow. The next DBA class, if you want to get into our next database class, it starts this Saturday. And so just get with our team, send a message, comment on this, comment on this, and in the chat or something. And someone will follow up with you. We'll give you, there should be a book a call link somewhere. Get into our Instagram, send us a DM, and we'll follow up promptly. But you can still get all of our programs 50% off till tomorrow. But yeah, that's the only announcement I have. We'll be back again next week. Thank you for all of this. If you have any questions or any things you want us to talk about, anything at all with your career change journey, we'll be glad to jump into it. All right. Thanks, everyone.
All right, everyone, thank you for joining us. See you next time.
Thanks.